Good morning, everybody. As we go to the Chitas of today, we are holding on the portion of Pinchas at the end of the sixth reading. Today's Friday. The sixth reading, which is on chapter 28, verse number 16. U'b'chodesh Harishan, in the first month, Bar Ba'asa Yom L'chodesh, in the 14th day, Pesach L'Hashem, is the holiday of Passover to God. U'b'chamisha Yom L'chodesh is on the 15th day. Chag, it becomes a holiday of Shivas Yomim, of 7 days. Matzis Ye'echel, you shall eat matzis for those 7 days. V'yom Harishan Mikra Kodesh, on the first day, the 15th day, is a celebration. Kol melechas aved leisasu, you're not allowed to do any work. Rashi says, even necessary work for you, such as something that results in a loss, is not done. So you cannot say, oh, it's not Shabbos, it's Yontiv, therefore I can do something that I might have a great loss. Torah says you're not allowed to do that. You have to not work, which is permitted on Chol Hamoed. Even though on Chol Hamoed you shouldn't even work either, but if on Chol Hamoed you have to, it's gonna be a great loss, you're allowed to do it. The intermediary days between the first days of Pesach and the last days of Pesach is called Chol Hamoed. So those days also really it's Chol Hamoed, it's still a holiday, but if you're allowed to do it, if it's a loss of money. But on Yontiv, you're not allowed to do it, even if it's a loss of money. Verse 19, you shall bring an offering to God. To bring to an offering to God 2 bulls, young bulls, and 1 ram. Vishiva kvasim, and 7 ewes, sheep. B'nei shana, within the year. Timim milachem, they should be unblemished. Now she says, Purim, the bull, is Keneged Avram Avinu. Is representing Avram on the Yontiv. Every of the patriarchs were represented. The par was for the Avram Avinu, as it says. Avram ran to the cattle. Elim, the ram, always represents Yitzchak Avinu, the ram of that was stuck in the thicket, as it says. Kvasim, and the lambs. Whenever it talks about lambs, it's usually connected to Yaakov Avinu, as it says, and he separated the lambs. And this is all brought down. The famous Rashi mentions this great sage many times in the book of the Moshe Hadarshan. And then it's a real offering. It should be a grain offering mixed with oil. Should be 3/10 of an ephah for each bull and 2/10 of an ephah for each ram. You must offer 1/10 of an ephah for each lamb, to the 7 lambs. And you have to bring 1 goat, a he-goat, as a sin offering. To atone you. Besides the Eilas Atamid, the morning offering also needs to be brought even on Yontiv. Which you have to do, whatever you have to do to the oil of the morning offering, you have to do Tasas Elam. And again, that's why on Yontiv you have Musaf, the Musafim. Musaf. Of course, you have to bring the oil of Satamim. Verse 24, you must bring this offering Shivas Yamim. You have to do it 7 days. 7 days you have to bring this offering. That's why we say Musaf all the 7 days of Pesach. On every day, even on Chol Hamoed, we add the Musaf because it was brought to sacrifice 7 days. Yomim lechem, it's a bread. Ishel Hashem, erech nechech Hashem al eilas hatamid ya'asav v'niskei. And on the oila of the morning, everything follows the tamid, the continual sacrifice of the morning sacrifice, v'niskei, and it's a scent offering. Kiniska, and it's a libation. I'm sorry. That the difference is you'll come to the 8 days of Sukkot. There was a different amount of a sacrifice every day. On Pesach, every day was the exact same thing. In the 7th day. So you have the first day, then you have the second is Chol Hamoed, the third is Chol Hamoed, the fourth is Chol Hamoed, the fifth is Chol Hamoed, and then you have the 6th of Chol Hamoed, then you have the 7th day. Today in America, the first 2 days are Yom Tov. And then you have the 7th day, but in the Eretz Yisrael, they followed this rule. The 7th day is the last day of Yom Tov. In the 7th day is a holy day. So that's the sandwich of the 7 days. In Chutz La'aretz, we do 8 days. We add another day to Yom Tov, so there's an 8th day. And then you have the day of the first fruits, which is Shavuos. When you bring a new grain offering, in your weeks, right? You count 7 weeks from Pesach to Shavuos. It's a calling. It's again in the Torah. Shavuos is 1 day. In Chutz La'aretz we do 2 days, but in the Torah it's 1 day. In Yisrael it's also 1 day. This 1 day. So Shavuos is 1 day. Shavuos is a festival. Shavuos. It's called the first produce of your wheat harvest. After 2 loaves of bread, which constitute the first wheat grain, this was called the Bikurim, was brought to the Shtei Alechem, the first wheat grain that was brought to the Beis Hamikdash, and they have the difference between the Chadash and the Yashan, the grain of the last year, the grain of this year, etc., and needed to be brought for the grain of this year, which was started from Tzfiras HaOmer, when the cutting of the Omer, which happened on the 2nd day of Pesach, which is the day we start counting the Omer. You should bring an offering to a pleasing smell to God. Part of any vakar, you have to bring on that day on Shavuos. You have to bring 2 young bulls. That Shnaim Ayel Echad, bring 1 ram. Shiva Kvasim, again 7 sheep. And their offering. Soilas Blul Bashemen. It needs to be flour that's mixed with oil. You need to have 3/10 of an ephah for each bull. And 2/10 of an ephah for each ram. And you need to have 1/10 of an ephah for each lamb. To the 7 lambs. See the ism echad lachap aleichem, and 1 he-goat to atone for you. Verse 31. Besides again the morning offering, and its food and its a grain offering. You should do this besides the morning offering. All of them must be unblemished, and they all need their libations. Rashi says, also the libations must be unblemished. Our rabbis learn from here that the wine that was developed, mold, scum, or unfit is unfit for libation. So therefore, they needed to be pure wine. Chapter 29, verse number 1. V'chodesh hashvi, in the 7th month, Bechel HaChodesh, in the 1st day of the month, Tishrei. Mikra Kodesh Yelachem, it's a day of calling for you. Yom Teruah Yelachem, it's a day of the sounding of the shofar. So in the Torah, it's called Yom Teruah. It's a day of blowing. You should bring an offering to God, an oil, a scent offering to God, which is pleasing to God. Par echad, 1 bull, ben bakar, ayel echad, 1 ram, kvas mineshana, shiva tvimim, and 7 lambs complete. And then you have to bring its food, it's a grain offering. Seilas bulul bashemen, fine flour mixed with oil. Shleisha salam par, 3/10 of an ephah for the bull, ushnei sen lael, and 2/10 of an ephah for the ram. And 1/10 of an ephah for each lamb for the 7 lambs. And 1 he-goat for a sin offering, to bring forgiveness to you. Besides the scent off a new month, because it is Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Hashanah is on Rosh Chodesh, and besides the Eilas HaTamid, you have to bring the morning offering. So it's the morning offering, it is the Chodesh offering, and you have Rosh Hashanah offering. V'niskeim and all their libations, Mishpatim and all the laws of the morning sacrifice, of the Chodesh sacrifice, of the Rosh Hashanah sacrifice. So it's a triple header on Rosh Hashanah. Rashi said, "Mavad elos hachodesh, musafir is chodesh." the additional Rosh Chodesh, the day, the Rosh Chodesh, which is the day of Rosh Hashanah. So you have to know Rosh Hashanah, there's three things. Now Rosh Hashanah is also 2 days, but that is everybody does 2 days Rosh Hashanah. Even though in the Torah it sounds like 1 day, that's what the Gemara calls these 2 days a Yom HaRichta. That's why Rosh Hashanah is on Aleph and Beis of Tishrei. So it's called a Yom HaRichta. It's everybody in Israel and everybody does 2 days, established by the sages that Rosh Hashanah is 2 days. And then you come to the 10th of the month of Tishrei. It's a day of calling. You should afflict your souls. Kol malacha leisasi, you're now doing any work on Yom Kippur. And you should bring again an offering. Par ben bakar, 1 bull. Echad, ayel echad, 1 ram. Kvas v'neshana, shiva tmimim, yilachem, and 7 lambs. And then you have to bring the grain offering with the flour mixed with oil. 3/10 of an ephah for the bull, and 2/10 of an ephah for the ram. Yisad and like Evis, and 1/10 of an ephah for each lamb, for the 7 lambs. 7 lambs. Verse number 11. Sit ezim echel achatas, and then 1 he goes for a chatas. Now we all know, we learned already in Achrei Mos. There's the avodah of Yom Kippur. That's a whole nother kind of concept. So that's what the Torah says. Mevat chatas hakipurim. This is besides the Chatas HaKippurim, the service in the Beis HaMikdash for the bull of the Yom Kippur, and the Shtei Azazel, etc., etc. That you'll have to go to Achrei Mos to know the Avodah of Yom Kippur. And besides, Eilas HaTamid, don't forget, you have to have the Eilah, the morning offering and the afternoon offering. So there's a whole situation. So that's why you have in the Yom Kippur davening, you have the Shachris, is the Tamid, you have the Musav, is this the sacrifice of Yom Kippur, and then you have the Avodah, and that's the whole different part. That's Achrei Mos, the whole Avodah of Yom Kippur, which is a whole different story. And this game was a very busy day in the Beis HaMikdash on Yom Kippur, because you had to do the Tamid, the sacrifice of Yom Kippur, which mentioned over here, and then go to Achrei Mos Kedoshim and do the whole service of Yom Kippur that's brought down there. So this and that is the goat that was performed inside the sanctuary. Yom Kippur was different than any other holiday. That it was brought, the blood was brought into the Beis HaMikdash. So it was a whole different reality. Not only the blood was brought into the Beis HaMikdash, it was brought into the Holy of Holies. So that you have to go to Achrei Mos, and you got to learn over there what you have to do, which is stated in Achrei Mos, which is also a sin offering. So there was 2 sin offerings that were brought. There was a sin offering brought to the Yontif of Yom Kippur, and there was the Avodah of Yom Kippur, which is a whole different sin offering. It's a whole different reality. Besides the Yom Kippur, he still brought the Eilas HaTamid. The morning offering was still brought, and so too the whole service Yom Kippur ended off with the Eilah Aleis Ben Abayim. The afternoon sacrifice ended the Yom Kippur service. So that didn't change, and whatever needed to be done for the Eilah, you needed to do on Yom Kippur, didn't change it. The Skayim, again, Ash is the libation. This refers back to the additional offering was written above, and it implies Tasu must be offered up, and this verse denoting a command. Besides the continual scent offering and its grain offering, you must offer up these additional offerings with their libations. Same applies to the command applied to the mention before in the Skehem regarding the festivals, except regarding the offering of Sukkot festivals. For every mention in the Skehem, in Niskav, in the Secheha, you're going to see in the Torah it keeps on going from these 3 kinds of expressions. When it comes to libations, regarding them refers to continual ascent offering, and it's not applied to expression of a command. For the command regarding the libation of additional offerings are written separately on each day, as you'll see tomorrow in the reading of the Sukkot holiday. So we haven't reached the Sukkot. We're holding here Yom Kippur, and the Torah tomorrow will go into the service, which is a whole different service. It was a 70 alternate. It counted. It was over the 70 animals that were brought from the first day of Yontiv to the last day of Yontiv, Shmini Atzeres. which one animal was brought, but that's tomorrow. Bezrat Hashem. We now go to the Tanya of the day. So we are on chapter 7 of the Sigeres Atshuva. Alter Rebbe now goes on to say that even sins which do not carry harsh penalty may still have the same effect. Even when it was never violated, the sin punishable by God forbid, cut off from God, and even a sin incurred by death of God, simple sin that is punished, lashon hara, or as the Alter Rebbe says, sure, it's all zel v'atola. God forbid a person, a man, has a mission, a mission. It's not punishable by death or curse. There's no punishable. There's no punishment in the Torah actually for such a sin. Gai gavna. Elashar avedas kalas, but others less severe sins. Afa became a person, as the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, don't judge a sin by its punishment. That's not the point. When we start judging a sin or a mitzvah by its value, then we're missing the point of the mitzvah. And therefore, it doesn't make a difference, the value of the mitzvah. And or the value of the punishment. Because you don't know the value, the true value of a mitzvah. It's a connection to God and a disconnection. Many, as we see in relationships, are based on the small things, none of the big things. But many relationships thrive and build on small things. And therefore, why? So because it's not, the person shouldn't evaluate between him and somebody else also big or small. The question is, and we should realize that a sin, the concept of a sin is that it affects the spirit. And that's it. So what's the difference, a big defect or a small defect? The Frierdiker Rebbe said a small hole in the body is a big hole in the soul. So a small defect can be a big defect. And they affect your soul. So what's the difference in a soul? A big defect. The soul is above time and space. What's the difference in a big defect or a small defect? Marshall begin with Chavalim Dakin. This as an analogy that the Alter Rebbe gave in the rope that defected, as noted in chapter 5, which describes 600 strands that together comprise a lifeless soul. When one transgression of the commandment, one of the strands is severed. So ultimately, so if a person thinks that he has 600 strands together, what's going to happen? One severed. But you go 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it. So he keeps on getting weaker and weaker. So therefore, you have to realize, with many sins, God forbid, therefore you take a thing and you have many sins. Many small sins could be like one big sin in this analogy. So you can one big sin would be a bigger strand, and many cuts will ultimately bring about the same ramification of this separation. And this is true even when you take one single sin and you keep on doing the same sin. So you keep on ruining that strand over and over and over again. So far from basically damaging the self-same strand repeatedly, the repetition of even the same sin weakens and jeopardizes the whole. So we should realize it's not the big or the small. It's the cut. It's the separation. It's the division that we need to care about. As the prophets would always express, they would say like it's a cloud, a cloud. Imagine a cloud. So a cloud, you have a big cloud, you have a small cloud. The sun cannot go through. So even a small cloud, the soul you can't see the beauty of the sun if it's a small cloud. A big cloud, you really can't see. But ultimately, the sun, it doesn't shine. There's a cloud. So that's the problem. So what's the difference? Why do we create and we think about it in that kind of a way? And to say that I'll erase your transgressions like a thick cloud. That can dissipate. This refers to the grave sins that are barriers, which could create an internal aspect of the powers flowing that creates the barrier between the internal aspect of the power that's flowing forth from the God's name. It doesn't. Now you have a barrier. There's a wall that separates between the revelation and where it needs to come. Like the separation of a thick dark cloud that stands that separates between the earth and the. So we know there's a sun above the clouds, but right now it's not sunny. It's cloudy and it's dark. The world becomes dark. So there's a beautiful sun, and we have these clouds that are separating us between the sun, and we comprehend the negative effect that has on us. Okay, so therefore we got to get rid of this cloud. We cannot get rid of the cloud, the physical, but we can get rid of this cloud, the spiritual cloud. As the verse says, your sins is like a cloud, and aviris kalas are the lesser sins that a person tramples on with his feet. So we have many avedas that people trample on with their feet. They think it's not important. It's not that important. This sin is not so terrible. It's not the end of the world. And that's a sad situation because it's basically creating this barrier, whether it's big or small. We're creating this barrier. So why am I diminishing? It's what's happening with my sin. In this illustration, one obscures the sunlight streaming through the window with many fine and flimsy curtains. What's going to be different? If I take a bunch of flimsy curtains and I put it all together, it's like a very thick curtain. So you're fooling yourself to think, oh, these are flimsy Avedas. These are flimsy divisions, and they're not so terrible. But many flimsy Avedas create a thick situation. When the Alter Rebbe gives you a mashal, then you have to understand the mashal. Every one of us, I need to understand the mashal. I need to understand what does it mean to me, this mashal. Because when I give a mashal, I give you an analogy of the sun and a shade. It should be something that resonates within me. And that's why I give the mashal. I understand the mashal. I have to give any story that you hear, you have to ask yourself, how do I come into the story? How do I come into this mashal? What is the analogy to me, this mashal? Maybe it's not an analogy. I don't put anything in front of me. But if I do, I have to analogize. What am I doing? That's why it says Adam Dash Bakeve, that there are things that I step on. When they give that mashal, that's an analogy. There are things that people step on. They don't care. They don't care. They step on it. It's irrelevant. They walk on the street, they step on it. They step on things. They don't care. Why? Why don't you care? Why don't you look where you're walking and don't step on things? You might be killing your animals. You might be destroying things in front of you because you're not looking where you're going. It always brings when I always learned this. It reminds me of my father. He said, "A person needs to look in his dal damis. You need to look where you're walking. Not only that you shouldn't trip, but you should watch what you're stepping on, and be careful not to step on things you shouldn't step on. Just because it's an ant doesn't mean you have to kill it. You can walk around it, so you don't care. So you seemingly it's not important. We do the same thing when it comes to human relationships. We do the same thing when it comes to our relationship with God. With certain things to step on, it's seemingly irrelevant to us. It's not important to us. We think it's not relevant. We think it's not important for whatever reason. And in the long run of things, it might not be important, and it might not be the end of the world. But L'Poel is right now, it's something that I need to work on. Because they seem a little importance. They obscure the divine light by their immoltiveness of repetition as many fine curtains. darkening as much as one thick curtain will, and even more. So therefore, the truth is, many of us don't do big avedas. We're not killing people. We're not, we're not stealing. We're not doing these big sins. We're doing small sins. We're doing fine curtains, and we're fooling ourselves to think, oh, but we didn't do a big thing. But meanwhile, we have 100 fine curtains that we have done, and what's the difference? It's dark. The room is dark, and we are in the darkness because of all these fine curtains that we put in front of us. And even though we didn't do a big sin, so we shouldn't fool ourselves that, the Alter Rebbe always wanted to have the concept of emes, that the aspect of truth, and that it should be in front of us. And especially, and certainly those sins that our sages often warned us against, that are actually, Alter Rebbe is to say something shopping now, maybe a little bit, they're actually like idolatry, immorality, and bloodshed. Now, that's the thing. People are fooled to think, oh, whoever does these three things, I'm not worshiping idols, I'm not living an immoral life, and I'm not killing anybody. But the Chazal made many connections to these three things that are by any one of us are biggies. And they say, my friends, you might be doing a biggie, doing a smallie. Like somebody who ignores the needy. And wow, what's so terrible? Well, somebody else can help the needy. I didn't do anything negative. I just walked away. I saw it. I didn't see it. I didn't again, like I stepped on it. I didn't see the poor person. I didn't do anything. I didn't make him poor. I didn't steal from him. What did I do? So I didn't do something. What's going to happen? But the Torah says, no, you're making a big mistake. As it's written in this concept, it says the following word. The Torah says if you walk by a poor person, an almana, a yasem, you walk by an opportunity to help somebody, and you say, I didn't see it, I just walked by it, and you Pasha didn't help this almana, or the yasem, or this poor person, you look at the word of the Torah that says, let be least in your heart something unworthy, Biliyal. Biliyal is one of the Aveda Zaras in the Torah. So the Torah says, the verse says in answers, if you walk past somebody and you don't help him, that means the Abish said, I give you an opportunity to give tzedakah, and you decided, okay, I'm not going to do it. I didn't do anything bad. I just didn't do something good. I just didn't help this person. I helped somebody else. I just walked by this. The Torah says, Hisham Alacha. It's Avodah Zarah. You have done an act of idol worship. Bilial, here translated unworthy, is used in reference to idolatry. Which we learned that is ignoring the need is likened to idolatry. So the Gemara says, why would the Torah stood Bilial over here? You could have used another word. So the word Bilial, because Bilial means unworthy. If you pass a person, the Torah says, and you don't help him, why? Because it comes into your mind. That's not worthy. I don't want to waste my time. It's not about me. I have no time for this. So I walk away from it. You didn't do anything negative. It was a negative act. You didn't do a negative act. You didn't do a positive act. So you didn't help the person. Oh, you're going to go help somebody else. So you didn't take the opportunity. The Torah says that's idol worship. That's like Avodah Zarah. So you saying that not helping somebody is a smallie, it's actually, in the Torah, it's a biggie. It's idol worship. And for example, tale-bearing, talking negative about somebody else. He lost nora. Evil tongue. The Gemara says that somebody who talks negative about somebody else, it's like doing all three things in one shot. It's like idol worship, It's like immoral thing. Talking negative of somebody else is idol worship, because you don't see the godly soul, as the Alter Rebbe explains in other places. You don't see the godly soul in that person, so it's idol worship. Shfichas dam, you're spilling his blood, and you're doing an immoral thing. You're doing an immoral act. And you should realize that, the Gemara says. So don't think that Lashon Hara is an easy thing. Kol HaKoyes, the Gemara says, whoever gets angry, Kilo Oivad Avodah Zarah, is like he's worshipping an idol. And somebody that's arrogant. Right? The Eibusha says that I don't dwell in a place of arrogance. So it's the ultimate aspect of Avodah Zarah, ultimate aspect of idol worship, because I basically chase God out of here. I like to say the word ego, edge God out. That's the concept of Avodah Zarah, of idol worship. Kahena Rabbis, the Gemara, Alter Rebbe says, I can go on over here. You can go look in the Gemara, look at the Talmud. The Gemara will show you that you don't fall into this trap of biggie and smallie. It's not a real situation. Because the small thing that I think is small, like Lashon Hara, like not doing something good at the mitzvah baliyatcha, I can help somebody and I walked away from it, is like Avodah Zarah, is like a big thing. And they can find them described in the Talmud, the sins whose punishment is not so severe, right? There's ultimately not a severe punishment in the Torah not helping somebody. There's no such thing. There's no punishment at all. If I don't help somebody, I'm not punished in the Torah. I don't get malchus even. There's no punishment, no Aveda. You cannot, it's not an Aveda in the Torah per se, not helping somebody. But it is an Aveda. It's actually a worse Aveda. It's the Torah says, Shomer levavcha b'liyal. Right? So it's not a joke in a way. So nevertheless, affect a similar spiritual bank. Why isn't it like a sin with the punishment? Because it might even be deeper than a sin that has a punishment. You might realize that this separation is greater than the. So if I talk like Lashon Hara, it's something that the Gemara says that every one of us falls into. Lashon Hara, we talk evil about another person. We fall into the thing, and we say that when we're talking evil about somebody else, that it's true that we're allowed to talk evil, and that's not true either. You have to know the laws of Lashon Hara. So it's time to talk evil about somebody else, even if it's true, is the prohibition of Lashon Hara. There are certain times that you're allowed to do that, but you need to know the law. You need to know the law of Lashon Hara. Until you know the law of Lashon Hara, you cannot talk Lashon Hara. But Talmud Torah, forget about everything else. But Talmud Torah keneged kulam. What about the lack of learning Torah? Is there a punishment in the Torah for the lack of learning Torah? Is there, even though the Torah says you should learn Torah day and night, is there a punishment in the Torah that the Torah says you are punished if you don't learn Torah? No such thing. There's no such thing. There's no such punishment. But we know the Gemara says, we know the sages says, Vitir HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the Gemara bases on a pasuk. Vitir HaKadosh Baruch Hu al Avodah Zarah. The Gemara says God would even forgive idol worship if you would learn Torah, which is a topic on itself. What is the meaning of the Gemara? But Vitir HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God would overlook idolatry and even immorality and even bloodshed, but not overlook the sin of neglect of Torah. So the Eibusha says, in a way to me, Torah has precedence over everything. Torah has precedence over everything. The Gemara says, Mamzer Talmid Chacham, Kohen Gadol. A Mamzer that's a Talmid Chacham stands before even the Kohen Gadol, because he has Torah. Thus the sin, such as ignoring the needy, tale-bearing, and so on, though not carrying the punishment of exertion, death, the hands of heaven, there's no punishment to it in the Torah. These sins that is mentioned, or So all these things that are mentioned over here, there's no punishment for lashon hara. You can't take a person, moitze shemra, defamation of name. You can take a person to court. You can't take a person to court for lashon hara, and especially if it's true. So, but still lashon hara, even though it's true, it's still lashon hara. Evil talk, and you can't take it to court. There's no punishment in the Torah. But you had us to before. The Gemara says that lashon hara is like all three things together. Avodah Zarah, Shvichus Damim, and Gila Arayis. It's the concept of idol worship and immorality and murder. For this reason, when we say the Krishma Shalamita at night, if you open your siddur, if you have a siddur, the Lubavitch siddur, in the Lubavitch siddur, I don't know if the other siddurim, but in the Chabad siddur, it's ordained that in the course of the Krishma Shalamita, the best way one should accept the 4 executions of the court and so on. When we say, you'll see that it's connected to the Shem Havaya, to the name of God, as the Alter Rebbe in Sylvia, could be Kabbalah. These 4 in the Torah have 4 executions. There's 4 ways to execute a person in the Torah. It means judicial executions in the court. And the 4 ways: skila, seifa, herev, v'chenek. So 4 ways: strangulation, fire, stoning, and the sword. So there's 4 ways of capital punishment in the Torah. They're all connected in a spiritual concept, and meaning that if God forbid I've done something, and you'll see in the siddur there, it tells you exactly what each of these things are connected. So even though in the Torah, capital punishment was only for severe cases, murder, terrible sins. Not talking about, again, there's no capital punishment for lashon hara. There's no capital punishment for not putting on tefillin. There's no such thing. There's no capital punishment for most mitzvahs I say. But there's spiritually capital punishment, so to say. And that's why at night, when we go to sleep, we say this concept. We talk with it. This acceptance is recited even those who have never committed capital sins. So if you look over there in the siddur, you'll see that they connect, the Kabbalah connects a capital sin to a simple mitzvah. Not saying Krishma, as it says Sudzi. So he says these sins, the soul, this blemish, the soul, the same degree as the one who's punishable by any of the 4 executions, diminished by the court. So it's, as a Chassidus we always learn that there's a concept of death, physical death and spiritual death. Spiritual death. So that's a concept of sin. Sin is a spiritual death. Besides, according to the Sod, according to Kabbalah, right? The mystical dimension of the Torah causing the effect of the Yud, the letter Yud in the tetragram of God's name, that's like if you cure lapidation. And a person who defects the letter Hey incurs burning. Somebody who affects the letter Vav of God's name is like he incurred the punishment of the sword. And the one who affects the Ois Hey incurs strangulation. Those are the 4 punishments: skila, sreifa, hereg, v'chenek. Skila is lapidation, stoning. Sreifa is burning. Hereg is a sword, and chenek is strangulation. So here is a spiritual dimension, and this is written in the Shema. You can look over there in the Krishma Shalamita. It's in the Siddur. So it's a mavato Krishma. If somebody didn't say the Shema, it's a mitzvah to say Shema. Poigim ba'is Yud. He affected the letter Yud in the name of God. Tefillin. If you didn't put on tefillin one day, ba'is Hey, You connect. You apply him in the second letter of God's name. B'tzitzis, one doesn't wear tzitzis, but is vav. He affects the is vav, the letter of vav in God's name. B'tfila, but and if he was neglectful in prayer, he affects the last letter of God's name. Now again, these are Kabbalistic concepts, but it's all rational. I don't know the exact connections between these mitzvahs and these letters of God's name. We thus see, according to Kabbalah, the soul can be blemished through other sins just as capital sin. So if you say that prayer at night, it's in the Siddur, you say that prayer, you see that if you forgot the Shema, you affected, and it says, you say in the prayer, I should be like asking God that God should, as if I got the chenek, as if I got the punishment. God should accept upon that. My tshuva should be that I'm asking God forgiveness that if I got that punishment, because I'm trying to rectify the pigam, the neglect. And therefore, anybody who has brains, the thinking man, thinking person, if you take these mitzvahs that's written over here, the Shema, Tefillin, the tzitzis, Tefillah, these are all mitzvahs say, there's no in the Torah, if you don't put on Tefillin, what happens? There's nothing in the Torah that says anything. There's no official punishment for a person who doesn't put on Tefillin. There's no official punishment if somebody doesn't say Shema. There's no official punishment if somebody doesn't put on tzitzis. And there's no official punishment if somebody doesn't daven. Pray. There's no such thing in the Torah. But nevertheless, in a spiritual sense, it's the greatest sin. Because you don't have a physical death, you have a spiritual death. Missing the Shema. The Gemara says in a different place that missing the Shema, when it's in the morning or day, it's a mu'uv shel sakim. It's a terrible thing. You cannot. How do you bring back the day? You cannot say the Shema again. There's no way you can bring back this thing. It's a pagam. It's such a neglect. It's such a defect that how do you fix this defect? Ultimately, you can fix every defect, but it's a much more deeper defect to be able to fix because you can't bring back the day. So we should realize what a defect means. That's the problem. We trample on things because we don't realize the defect of these things. We're only worried about the punishment. We're worried about the cause and effect. We're not worried about the true cause and effect of everything, the spiritual cause and effect of things. And maybe it's not in the physical way a very big dilemma, but in the spirituality, it might be the toughest dilemma. And therefore, we should realize that. And therefore, we shouldn't, as the Mishnah says, don't trample on anything. Don't trample on any mitzvah. Don't evaluate any mitzvah. Or de-evaluate, God forbid, a mitzvah or an avera. That's right. Therefore, if you're a thinking man, the Alter Rebbe says, you'll be able to understand that don't evaluate. Again, the learning of Torah. That's why don't be so haughty. We all have neglected Torah, and therefore we have neglected a terrible thing. We've done a great pagam in our souls. And we're all defected in that way, and we have to realize that. So from all the above, we ended chapter 7. Keneged Kulam, which is equivalent to all Talmud Torah, Keneged Kulam. All the above lends to the thinking person to contrite. That's the point. The point is, don't be so egotistical. Humble yourself. We all need to humble ourselves before God. Again, it's not a public thing. It's between me and God. I need to humble myself before God. I need to have a contrite. I need to know that I have certain things in my life that I need to fix. So I'm not so great, and therefore, leiv nishba v'nitka. It shouldn't be a hard thing to have a humbled heart, a contrite heart. So thinking of a person of a contrite heart, as he grows aware of the blemishes caused even by his supposed lesser sins. this contrition in the second preparatory step along the true and direct path. So that's what the Alter Rebbe. You need to have the first thing is rachamim, mercy on my soul. The second thing, which is the harder thing, is to have a contrite soul, to have a contrite heart, to have a leiv nishba benitka, and we need that. And we need to, for contrition crushes the klippa and Sech Achra, because ultimately, as the Alter Rebbe says, this contrition breaks this klippa Sech Achra, enables man to repent truthfully, earnestly, regretting his past misdeeds, and firmly resolving to better his future ways. And that completes the seventh part in this beautiful letter of Igeres HaTruma. My friends, today is the 22nd day of the month, which is chapter 106 and 107. If we do those two chapters, we do the chitas of the day. The Yom Yom, day to day, the Rebbe writes in the name of the previous Lubavitch Rebbe, that the previous Lubavitch Rebbe said, my father said, which is the Rebbe Rashab, a Hasidic aphorism makes the head clear and the heart clean. Chasidic virtues practice fills the home with light. Chasidic melody fortifies hope and trust, brings joyousness, and places a home and family in a state of light. Beautiful statement of the Rebbe Rashab. I wish you all a wonderful, beautiful, phenomenal day, a good night of Shabbos. I wish you all a wonderful Shabbos. I hope that you will all learn chitas tomorrow by yourself. And in Mir Hashem, we'll get together on Sunday. We will continue to go and learn chitas together, start new Parshas Matos, and I wish you all, as we go to journey towards the end of the book of Numbers, Matas Maseh, and start soon the Parshas Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy. Have a wonderful and beautiful and phenomenal Shabbos. See you soon.